Center. We have Ms. N. Meena with us today. Welcome, ma'am. She
Hello,
has
ma'am.
authored
Good
many
evening.
short stories and poems in Tamil and English. The recently released work of Ms. Meena is a Tamil poetry collection titled Megathin Kulandai. She has actually actively participated or contributed her works to various anthologies and e-magazines. We are thankful to be with us today, ma'am. I welcome you for the 4th day international conference and request you to proceed with the talk.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good evening to everyone. I thank Professor Jasmine, Dr. Jasmine of AJK College for this wonderful opportunity. And I also thank all the principal secretary and the management of AJK College, and also Sangam Literary Research Group for giving this wonderful opportunity. A very good evening. So, my topic for today's discussion is identity. So, without much ado, I think we can go. 1 minute. Yes, I hope my file is visible. Is it visible, ma'am?
No, ma'am, it is not visible. You are
Okay.
audible, but the file is not visible.
1 minute. Now, is it visible, ma'am?
No. Yes, now it is visible, ma'am. You can continue.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. My topic is regaining identity as women. Okay, and I am going to take you all through a journey of Indian women writers. From independence, or even I would say from pre-independence till now, what is happening, why identity is very important, and what are the presets of these Indian women writers. So this is my topic. I think let us move to the topic. So identity, why is it so important? People call, identity is the most important thing as a woman, as particularly as an Indian woman. You feel an urge to an urge, in the sense you are supposed to prove your identity every time. I think I use the right word, to prove your identity. Being a man, you need not prove your identity, you need not prove anything to this world because you are a man. But for a woman, you should prove your identity from time to time. And this is what my topic today is: identity. And the first question to you all is, why is it important? It is very simple. Identity is always related to your emotional health, your mental health, and your mental well being. See, given the scenario that you do not know anything about yourself, you do not know who you are, or you have this existential crisis or existential question, you cannot live in this world peacefully, or you can only survive in this world and not live in this world. That is why who you are, this question or answer to this question is very important for every woman, invariably, you are in India or you are abroad, you are somewhere else, wherever you go, even in India, whether you are in a rural setup or you are in an urban setup, wherever you go, wherever you are, who you are, that question should linger in your mind. That is why I asked this question. Why is it important? It is important for your emotional well-being, and also to live your life peacefully. And as I told you already, for a man, they need not prove themselves unless they are in a constrained setup. But for a woman, they should prove themselves time and again, and we are doing so every time. So that goes to the next question or the next slide, which asks this question: Indian women and their perception on marriage. The important identity crisis, I would say, you know, for every woman, is this question of marriage. Is marriage the be all and end all of Indian women? Do you think so? Do you accept that somehow or the other? Everybody thinks, even your mom, your dad, and everyone thinks that the society thinks that marriage as a concept is the be all and end all of women, especially in India. So, what is their perception? For example, marriage is actually called an institution, not only in India, everywhere, because of the patriarchal mindset and patriarchal ideas that surrounds marriage. So, Indian women and their perception on marriage and how it is related to Indian writing in English. So, that is my next question. Of course, when you dive deeply into it, the question of marriage and how it is related to Indian women or Indian writing in English before independence or even after independence, be it post independence or pre independence era, every writer talked about relationship. Even today, in this contemporary world, people are talking about relationship and the values behind relationship, and how a man and a woman cope up with each other and live their life. Because in abroad, in other countries, marriage is not considered an institution, or marriage is not so sacred or deeply rooted. But in India, marriage is deeply rooted in every community, in every state. So, Indian writing in English, especially women writers of English, Indian women writers of English, they started talking about marriage uh, traditionally, since pre-independence, and even today they talk about marriage. So, what is so important in that, and how valuable is that to talk about marriage, or how human relationship actually suppress Indian women? That is another case. See, we can actually divide Indian women writing in English into two parts. One is pre independence, and another one is post independence, as I told you. This post independence era, the women writers in post independence era, they actually talked about the problems that women face in marriage, in relationship, whereas the writers of pre-independence era, they did not talk about marriage, or they talked about marriage, or they did not talk about the sufferings that women undergo, or I would say a married woman undergo. Okay, so you have in pre-independence era, you have great writers like Thoru Dutt, you have Sarojini Naidu, and you also have Savitri Bai Phule, a great activist, for whom marriage is a great reason for her development. I'm not saying that marriage pulls you down, but at times marriage gives wings for you to fly, and at times marriage curtail your wings. Okay, so this pre-independence era talked about nature. Of course, you have Sarojini Naidu who talked about freedom, and you have Toru Datta who is the first woman to write in English as such from India. She is the first one to write in English. Others, in pre-independence era, they wrote in their mother tongue and they translated their works into English. And Torudat is the first person to write in English as such. So we actually put a comma in pre-independence era. Of course, these struggles and how to cope up with the struggles and the psyche of women all started during pre-independence era. But this post-independence era, or we would say the contemporary world, or the writers of the contemporary world, actually talked about women psyche. So in women psyche, what they concentrate on. Before we move into this, let me share an interesting an incident with you. So before coming here to Loyola, I was working in a small college in my hometown. There, when I was taking class, I was handling poetry class, and to one of my students, I asked, where do you see yourself in 10 years? I asked this question, and that student, she has answered me that, ma'am, I'll be getting married, and I would be definitely having kids, ma'am. This was her answer. I was so shocked to hear this, because when you ask this question, where do you see yourself in 10 years, no boy will answer like this. Only a few boys, or that too, they have their own dreams, and after achieving their own dreams, maybe at the end they would say this, that they wish to get married, maybe in 10 years or so, I will be living with my kids in an apartment, or things like that. They go on and on. But for a woman, the Indian scenario, the setup has made so, for a woman, she answered this, I'll be getting married, ma'am. She did not talk about her dream, she did not talk about her aim, she did not talk about her job, or I would say her identity as a woman in the society. She identifies herself as a mother. In this place, I use the word she. This In this place, she does not only define my student, or that one girl. Of course, pathetically, so many women in India still think marriage is the solution to all their problems, and they think being a mother or being a wife is their identity, which is, of course, pathetically wrong. They do not know, or they do not understand the value of a woman as a human being. So, which comes to the next question, that is gaining identity. So all these great writers, you have Arundhati Roy, you have Bharati Mukherjee, you have Manju Kapoor, you have Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, Shashi Deshpande, and everyone, they they talked about identity. And there is one important quote I had here, but somehow. Uh, Okay, the color scheme didn't match, I think so. So the quote here is, let me read that for you. Life is a continuous, yes, 1 minute. Yes, life is a continuous play of two things: a desire um, for change, and a need for known and the familiar. I also have quoted one important. 1 minute. Let me change the color for you, so that you can understand that code, and you can understand the value of that code. 1 minute. Yes. Okay. Let me again share that with you. Ma'am, is it visible? I'm sharing the screen. Is it visible?
No, ma'am, it's not visible.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, somehow the screen is not visible, but let's not wait for that. Let us move on. So the quote is very simple. Gaining identity. To gain identity, you should know who you are. And Sashi Deshpande has beautifully quoted, life is a continuous play of two things: a desire for change and a need for known and familiar. See the usage of words or coining of the words. Life is a continuous play of two things: a desire for change and a need for known and the familiar. As women, or I would even say as human beings, we are all stuck in this juggling. Like we want to come out of our comfort zone. At the same time, when we leave our comfort zone, we feel sad. That too, for a woman, even to come and work in another city, in a new city, or to get married and to go to a new city. A man, or generally I'm telling you, generally on an average, a man can go easily and venture new things than a woman. It is because they think they might lose their identity when they go to uh, a new place. That is why they are all they are so, they are into themselves when they, one minute, when they come to another part, or I would even say when they are moved to another area, another city, from their comfort zone. So Sashi Deshpande here says, life is a continuous play of two things: a desire for change. We need change, but at the same time, we are so sophisticated to live in the known and familiar. Coming back to the topic of identity and also the topic of marriage, though he is not an Indian writer, I wish to quote him. That is Henry Kitson, one of my favorite writers, who talks in Dollhouse about marriage. I quote, in Doll's House, in at the towards the end, it says, before everything else, the Helmer, the main character in that story, he says to his wife, before everything else, you are a wife and a mother. For that, the wife says at the end of the story, she understands who she is actually. At the end of the story she says, Nora says, I quote, I don't believe that any longer. I believe that before everything else, I'm a human being, just as much as you are. At any rate, I shall try to become one. If you find time, or I hope so, some of you would have read this beautiful drama, A Doll's House. If you have not read this drama, A Doll's House, till now, please do go and read Doll's House, a beautiful drama where Ibsen portrays how a marriage should work and should not work. Okay, and this Doll's House is an inspiration to so many Indian writers, especially Sashi Deshpande, Anita Nair, and also Anita Desai, which is again an inspiration to her daughter Kiran Desai. Sumati ma'am, my screen is not visible till now, right?
Yes, ma'am, it is not visible.
Okay, I'm trying my level best to.
Fine, ma'am. Let me check out. In the meantime, you
Yes, ma'am.
continue. Let me check out. Yeah.
Yes, please do check out, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I have uploaded it. Kindly check out. Yes. So this concept of identity again comes to this post-independence era. As I told you, when we talk about pre-independence era, we talked about freedom. Freedom, not it is not freedom of self. It is freedom from British, as you know, and also we talked about nature. But post-independence era, the writers in post-independence era, they talked about the real freedom, freedom from self, and also freedom from the clutches of others in the name of marriage or in the name of relationship. This is because they want to assert, they in the sense, um, every woman in India, or especially women writers of India, they wish to assert their identity after globalization. We can't neglect Kamala Markandeya's Nectar in the Sieve here, but we are not going to look Nectar in the Sieve in detail now. In that case, we are not going to deal with any one particular literary piece in detail. I will give you the identity and also the tenets of women from independence till now, and what can we do in the contemporary world. I am not going to give you the summary or the characters or of every Indian writers. I'll give you the names. I'll kindle you to think about those concepts, propounded by those Indian women writers. So this globalization, they, in the sense, these women writers wish to assert themselves after independence, that is globalization. Namely, three writers I have taken for consideration. One is Sashi Deshpande, the other one is Mahashweta Devi, and the third one is Kamala Das. Sashi Deshpande's important work and award-winning work, that is That Long Silence, and Mahashweta Devi's two works I have taken into consideration. One is Breast Stories, and the other one is Rudali. Rudali is an important work that deals with the emotions and psyche of Indian women. And also Kamala Das, a beautiful confessional poet, who is the epitome, I would say, in India, the epitome of confessional poetry. How they valued themselves. You have a concept called placing self above all those conventions and also rules. So these writers, namely Sashi Deshpande, Mahashweta Devi, and also Kamala Das, they have placed their selves above convention, or above all those rules. And in That Long Silence, Jaya, the important women character or the protagonist, when she realizes her mistake, of course she stays. We will discuss these writers. We will also look at the side of women, how they portrayed women characters. In That Long Silence, both the father and the son leaves the home, but Jaya, the protagonist, stick to the home. At any point of time, she is not ready to leave the home, because she thinks that home is where her identity belongs. Though she is illiterate, though she is capable of defining her own identity, she is not ready to define that, because in Indian scenario, during that time, I'm talking about maybe during 1950s or 1960s and 70s, 3 or 4 decades back, they think that their home is their identity. And the second author that in consideration is Mahashweta Devi. Mahashweta Devi, when I talk about Mahashweta Devi, I also link her with mythology, but especially here I want to talk about Rudali. When other Indian writers, especially Indian women writers, they talked about emotions, psyche in a different way, Mahashweta Devi portrayed the exact scenario that is behind a particular community in Jaipur, in Rajasthan. Or I would even say she values emotions or she gives importance to emotions, because in Rudali, the name itself, if you know Hindi, you will understand, the name itself denotes an important human emotion, and the job, behind that emotion. Rudali, one who cries and cries for others death. In Tamil we have a concept called Opari, and people will come and sit, if someone is dead, people will come and sit, and they will cry for others death. So that is what this word Rudali means. And Mahashita Devi's story beautifully depicts two women in Rudali. Both are strong characters, and how happily they cry at the end of the story is the irony over there. Of course, she cries, but she feels so happy when she expresses her emotion. So that is the touch of Mahashweta Devi. Of course, Sashi Deshpande viewed women, or viewed Jaya in a different perspective. Here, Mahashita Devi viewed women from a different perspective, which arrives to our next important perception, that is confessional poetry. How Indian women, you know, at one point of time, maybe even I would say, we can take Rudali or breast stories, and also that long silence by Sachi Deshpande. They are not ready to expose their emotions. Whereas Kamala Das, as I told you, she is the epitome of confessional poetry. She is there expressing her emotions without any embarrassment. If you read an introduction and also My Grandmother's House, you will understand how brutally she actually exposes all the emotions, that too in her memoir My Story. If you consider that into into this argument, you will understand how important it is to be a woman, and to confess to everybody that these are all the mistakes you did. A woman is not a superhuman being, or a woman is not a superhuman to to live without any mistakes. Kamala Das represents all the mistakes that she did, and also all the mistakes that every Indian woman, not only Indian women, every woman may do or might not do. That is up to each individual. But she doesn't feel any kind of embarrassment in expressing that, and also she gives solutions through her own life problems and her own life findings. That is what this globalization has taught us. In this identity crisis, when we have this journey, the first step towards this globalization, or towards finding identity, is to assert your mistakes, or is to value who you are and to value your mistakes. In that sense, these three writers, Sashi Deshpande, Devi, and also Kamala Das, they play a key role. So this is the first step in defining who you are, which comes to our next important slide or important step, that is quest for identity. So you know who you are, you value yourself for who you are, but there is an unending suffering, which is lingering because because of a simple thing, that you are a woman. There comes the important quest for identity. You confess something to someone, but what next? You express your emotion to someone, and you are happy that you are expressing your emotion, but what next? So there comes the quest for identity. And here, as a quest for identity, I have taken four key writers. One is Kamala Das. Again, I have taken an introduction, and Ladies Coupe by Anita Nair, and also Anita Desai's book, and Kiran Desai's important book, The Inheritance of Loss. So these four writers actually talked about the quest, or I would say the unending quest for identity, or to prove yourself in this contemporary world. For example, in Ladies Coupe, you can take Anita Nayar's beautiful novel Ladies Coupe, you can take Akila. You know, uh, of course, as I told you, in Sashi Deshpande's novels, there are certain I would say they depict women as I told you, they Jaya did not leave her home. What may happen, she stays at home because Sashi Deshpande has depicted that home is her identity. Here, Anita Nair depicts, Akila as a woman, as a single woman. I would even say she is the foremost single woman, in Indian English writing, who stood for herself, who deviated herself from marriage, and who actually, thought of her career, and who thought of dating someone who is, apart from, she went beyond age, she went beyond all those rules and convention, because Anita Nair, she has beautifully depicted the character of Akila, where, she did not get married. She is 41, still single, but she enjoys her life. At the same time, everybody around her, you know, uh, tells her that she is not living her life to the mark because she has not get married. Of course, she has got this character Akila, Akila and Eshwari, I would say. She has got her own dreams to achieve, but the problem is the society and also her own mother. They did not let her to enjoy her life, or they did not let her to live her dream. So that is one of the most important tenets in the quest for identity. Are you living your dream? That is the next question in my presentation. Are you living your dream? If your answer is yes, good. But your answer is no, please try to seek your identity. So that is very important. Here in Ladies Coupe, Akila's character, you can say at the end, yes. Thank you, Sumati ma'am. Thank you, English Research Center, for. Yes, this is my slide. This is sixth slide. I would like to check this slide too. Yes. Okay. So the quest for identity comes with this Ladies Coupe and also Sri Deshpande's That Long Silence, an introduction, and also Kiran Desai's Inheritance of Loss. Though I don't remember the exact story of Inheritance of Loss now, you can easily grab those lovely moments, or of living abroad and also searching identity, those two important characters when they go from shop to shop, to prove their identity, or to get that green card. You will understand how, though the main characters or strong characters, they are not dependent on anyone. They go in search of identity, which is an important theme in Inheritance of Loss by Kiran Desai. As I told you, marriage is not the be all and end all of a woman's life in India, but all these books, important books. Introduction is a poem. That Long Silence, Ladies Coupe, and Inheritance of Loss talked about marriage and relationship, which comes to the next question of the recurrent themes that are present in Indian writing in English, which is social discrimination because of marriage, and also because of gender, and because of society, male oppression, self-realization and psychological suffering. When you take all these novels, especially, I was talking about Kamala Markandeya's Nectar in the Sea, and also these novels, Ladies Coupe and Inheritance of Laws, and much more. There are so many novels. As soon as during 1960s or 1970s, there were so many novels which concentrated on self-realization and male oppression. In that way, Indian women writers tried to gain their identity. And of course, psychological suffering was one of the key tenets during 50s, 60s, and 70s of Indian writing in English. But during 80s, that is 1980s and 1990s, with the advent of computer, with the advent of technology, and also, people started reading, people started moving. As I told you, globalization played a key role. They gradually moved toward towards the next theme, or towards the next important concept in Indian writing, which comes to an activist, or how to be a critic and an activist at the same time. So these are some of the kinds or forms of female experience. As a female, you need not, or as a female writer, as a women writer from India, you need not only talk about marriage, relationships, psychological suffering, how you undergo the suffering, or how you give solution to those problems, or how you come out of the marriage. Of course, these are all important themes or key themes till now. But beyond this, as I told you, in the 70s and in 80s, in 90s, beyond all these local themes, Indian women writers started moving globally. And there were two important writers, I have to mention them here, who acted as critic and also an activist, and also they are profound writers. So one is the ever loving Arundhati Roy and Vandana Shiva, and also Gayatri Spivak. Let me talk about Vandana Shiva. I would even compare Vandana Shiva and Mahashweta Devi and Arundhati Roy with Gayatri Spivak. Gayatri Spivak is such a great writer. She is a translator. When you talk about mainstream Indian women writing, you actually leave some of the eminent scholars actually leave Gayatri Spivak. But it was so surprising to me, because Gayatri Spivak is a great woman who introduced important translations of great theories from English, from other language to English. For example, she is the one who translated of grammatology of Derrida. When you talk about Indian women writing in English, we mostly concentrate on fiction. I think at least from now you can concentrate on the Indian translators too. Okay, so Gayatri Spivak is one such great writer, and as I told you, I can compare Vandana Shiva and Mahashweta Devi, because both of them, or Arundhati Roy, Mahashweta Devi, sorry, both of them talked about being a writer and being an activist. In one of the interviews, Arundhati Roy said, "Please don't call me a writer and an activist, because a writer," or she, in her own words, most of the writers or most of the authors are activists in themselves. You need not call them specifically as an activist, because when you write a literary piece, be it a poem, be it a play or a novel or whatever it may be, when you write that, you actively participate in something unique or something tremendous. You are conveying something important to the society. So as a writer, you are an activist. And also Arundhati Roy, she's a social activist. Apart from her writings, she actively participated in politics. She is one of the key women, during 1980s and 1990s, who actively participated in politics. Even today, people, especially women, refrain themselves from participating in politics or uttering their own stance in politics. But Arundhati Roy was, was never afraid of anybody. And you have Vandana Shiva. Vandana Shiva, almost all of you would have heard of Staying Alive. Staying Alive is a beautiful eco-feminist book where, the key concept of a woman's body, or the key concept of feminism, how it is related to environment. She's an environmentalist, and the Time magazine in 2003, I suppose, they named her, or they gave her an award as environmental hero. Thank God the Time magazine named her as a hero, not heroine, because we find it funny. One of those important writers, while introducing her to the audience, the MC, the person who is doing MC, introduced her as a female writer. For that, in that stage itself, this writer claimed that, please don't call me female writer. Are you calling a male writer a male writer? No, a writer is a profession, and there is no difference, or there is no gendered bias here. There is no stereotyping here. So thank God the Time magazine has, likewise Time magazine has rightly gave the award to Vandana Shiva as environmental hero way back in 2000 itself, in 2003 itself. So she is a great environmental activist whose book Staying Alive will give you important concepts about environment, and also Indian women in Indian scenario, how globalization affects environment, and again it affects Indian, especially Indian rural women's livelihood. If you find time, kindly read Staying Alive. I would personally suggest that book to you. So which of course, as I told you, 1960s and 70s human relationships was a key theme, and in 1970s, 80s and 90s you had this speaking as an activist, or coming out of or breaking the glass ceiling, is the key concept in 70s, 80s and 90s. And the next key concept that we are going to see is the voice of the queer, which is very important. As human being, we should understand, and we should accept everybody as a human being. But this acceptance, even today I'll not say that everybody has accepted the LGBTQ community, or even there are some people who think of queer theory as, when you discuss queer theory, or when you discuss about LGBTQ issues, they won't even render their ears. But during the later part of 1990s and 2000s, you had this revolution where the voices of LGBTQ people started raising, especially women writers. And you have three great writers here. In 2000s, of course, they ruled the LGBTQ, and the concepts behind that, and the sufferings they portrayed. How as you find your identity as a woman. We talk about identities as a woman now, even in this women empowerment, in this conference. But still now, pathetically, we don't talk about these people. They are also human beings. And these three book, Married Women by Banju Kapoor, and Loving Women, Being Lesbian in Unprivileged India, such a great book, which actually move you to tears when you read the second book, Loving Women. They are all, this book, the second one is a non-fiction, the first one is a fiction, and the second and third one both comes under non-fiction. The second one is actually an anthology which depicts lives of several women from north, several transgender people from north, how they depict themselves, or how they find their own identity in life. So that was depicted in the second book, Loving Women. And the third one, Lakshmi, is a kind of memoir. Lakshmi, she talked about herself, how she broke the glass ceiling, how she moved out of all the clutches from her home, from the orthodox home, and how she came to society, how she found her identity. And she has also authored so many books. She is an activist. You can also do research on Lakshmi if you wish. So if you are interested in LGBTQ, I strongly recommend Lakshmi as a great activist, and a writer who established herself after all those hurdles. So in the late 1990s, or even in 2000s, but that is before 2010, I would say, this voices of queer people or LGBTQ people, they started raising. And these three are the key books from this age, or this voices of queer, which um, is of course another important voice in Indian English writing. That comes to our next voice of women Indian writing in English, which is mythology. One of my favorite, area, that is mythology. We saw how women, as a writer, she emerged from being a writer. From she talked about human relationships, she talked about home, she talked about her work, and then gradually it moved towards activism, gradually it moved towards politics, and then it also made a great impact for other communities, for people from other communities, how you can render your support to other communities. And also it came back to revisiting mythology during 2000, after 2005 to 2000, even till now. How Indian women writers revisit mythology is my next area. So, revisiting mythology, is it important? You can ask this question to anyone, but the answer that everyone gives is yes, because we portray, even in mythology, you have this concept of patriarchal mindset, because every I will not say even every the two important epics in India, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, both were written by men. And in their books, not all the women characters are portrayed as good. They are portrayed as meek. They are not portrayed as strong as one or two characters. Of course, you have one or two characters in Indian mythology who are so strong, but those strong characters are again portrayed as negative characters in so many stories. So, to revisit Indian mythology, to rewrite those stories from a woman's perspective, gained momentum during 2010s. And during 2010, 11, and the years that follow 2010. And you have three important writers, three important Indian women writers. They are Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, Kavita Kane, and Anuja Chandramouli. You can never read Indian writing in English neglecting Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni's Draupadi, The Palace of Illusions. And of course, now Kavita Kane's books are gaining momentum, and Anuja Chandramouli, who actually talked about Arjuna, she gained popularity with her book Arjuna first. But another book she has authored, which is titled as Shakti, which has not gained so much popularity as Arjuna. But Shakti is the book which actually talks about women power. And she talks about how the earth we perceive earth as shakti, how energy is so important. So she compares the science and also mythology. She of course Anuja Chandramouli, she unites science and mythology in her novel Shakti. I also recommend Shakti to you all. So coming back to Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, for the Palace of Illusions, the greatest book which talk about Draupadi in a limelight or in a different way. uh, Divakaruni, Divakaruni's Forest of Enchanters, the recent one, and also Palace of Illusions, talks about Draupadi and Sita, one from Mahabharata and the other one from Ramayana. In Mahabharata and also in Ramayana, both Draupadi and Sita are portrayed as dependent characters or meek characters, who are so subtle, who are so subservient. The right word to use here is subservient to their male counterparts. But Divakaruni has given them a different perspective, how you can view a woman as subservient in this in even today's scenario, how you can especially how you can view Indian mythological women as subservient, or why is the need to view them as subservient. Let them be the strong characters too. So that is the ideology of Chitra Divakaruni, and also Anja Chandramouli. And you have Kavita Kane too. Kavita Kane, again, she, when when you look at the titles of her books, uh, the titles of her books are they convey something to you. She talks about Urmila in her book titled Sita Sister. So it is a critically acclaimed book of Kavita Kani, one of the most acclaimed books. She did not title, or she did not give the title as Urmila. She gave the title as Sita Sister. And another critically acclaimed work is Karna's Wife. Though the title is somebody's wife or someone's sister, not the title is not about the protagonist. The story and how she carried the portrayal of those characters, or from strong, or from a meek character or weak character to a strong character, and how the transition happens, everything is beautifully portrayed by Kavita Kane. So these three writers, of course, you have so many Indian male writers who revisits mythology, like Ashwin Sanghi, Amish Tripathi, Devdutt Patnaik, and everyone. But here, since we talk about Indian women writers alone, I took these three writers: Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni, Kavita Kane, and Anuja Chandramouli, which is the important part in India to revisit mythology, and to you know uh, um, to gain momentum in this current scenario. You have to compare, or I would say, even in the Forest of Enchanters, in one of the interviews that Shweta Banerjee Divakaruni gave, she depicts Sita as the first single mother ever lived. Sita is the first single mother ever lived. Of course, she raised her two children, in a beautiful way, in a wonderful way, without the help of anybody. So, the first single mother, you can draw energy from her. So that is why revisiting mythology is so important. And with this, we move towards our next writers, next set of writers, who are the voice of the voiceless, we would say, writers from our own region, that is Tamil Nadu, especially Dalit writers. Before, I would say, 1990s or 1980s, you had this pathetic scenario where a set of people were not given opportunity even to talk. But in 2000s and especially in 2010s, they all raised their voice. That is why I've mentioned here as the voice of the voiceless. And as I told you, we are especially seeing Indian women writers. So I have taken three key writers from our own region, that is Bhama, P. Sivakami, and Meena Kandaswamy. You cannot read Dalit writing or Dalit literature neglecting these three important people. And if you read Karuk by Bama, you will understand, how it is so important to gain or regain your identity, as a woman and also a Dalit or from that community. I would say, I know, I would not use that particular word. I refrain from using that word. So from that community, we have a cliched term called double subjugation, which was used by Afro American writers. Being a woman and being an Afro American puts you in a position where you are doubly subjugated. You are subjugated because of your gender, and you are all subjugated because you are an Afro American. Likewise, in Indian scenario, especially in our scenario, you have these three writers, Bama, Sidakami, and Meena Kandaswamy, who talks about double subjugation, how you are subjugated because of your caste or because of your birth, and how you are subjugated because you are a woman. So please do read Karuk by Bama, and also the important characters, in Karuk, and all those. Though the story is so small, though you have so many small stories in that, the way Bama captured those stories, or the way that she has written, will move you into tears, and you will understand the signs, or even the symbols behind every word that we use, both in Tamil and also in English. Okay, so this is the voice of the voiceless, which comes till 2000. Even today they are all prominent writers, but they gained momentum during 2010 and 2015. After 2018, one of the key concepts that ruled Indian women writing, or women writing in general, all over the world, is the cyberspace or the cyberscape, feminist principle of the internet. So this is one of my last slides. We have come to the end of the presentation, where you understand how you regain or how you gain your identity as a woman in cyberscape. That is why I have put moving on to. So what do we do as a woman in cyberscape or cyberspace? What do we do, as a writer here, in this current scenario, in this internet world? What do we do? Are we really participating in these political discussions? When I was talking about Arundhati Roy, I have also mentioned Savitri Bai Pule, who is an activist. During Arundhati Roy's time, during Savitri Bai Pule's time, there were not much source, or there were not much support from the society or from their home, but somehow they stood by their idea. But here, now, I think we should go back, or we should draw energy from them, or we should look after them as example to regain our identity in cyberspace. That is the next trend in feminism, which talks about cyber feminism. Of course, you would have heard of Diana Haraway, where she talked about cyborg, and women in cyberscape or cyberspace is so, it is so menial, because the involvement in design and production of technology is so less. I will repeat it again. Gender divide in the involvement of or involvement in design and production of technology. There is a gender divide. You have a great company, if you take on an average, when it comes to designing and also production of any gadget or of any technology, male is involved than female employees. That is why you have this disparity. Women occupying space online, especially when it pertains to politically charged matters, are regarded as interlopers in male space. I will repeat that again. Women occupying space online, no, in all the matters online, especially political discussions online. When it comes to politics, the male counterpart, or even I'm sorry to say this, male from your home, male, even your some of your male friends may see you as an interloper in their space, because they think that any social media account is created for them, or any technological advancement is created by them and for them. So this is why women in cyberspace is very much less. But nowadays, I would say, after corona, or after before 2000, before in 2021, and then during these 2 months, it is gaining momentum, women in cyberspace. But I wish more women to participate in cyberspace, especially in politics and discussions regarding politics. So I pose this question to you all. Tell me, you need not tell me. Also, you can think of it. How many of us really have a Twitter account? Number one, women especially, and how many of us are actively participating in Twitter and all those discussions? Only some of us. We are all active in Facebook, we are all active in Instagram, and some of us are active in Tinder too. All these social media platforms that I refer to, that is in the Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, are all created for relationships. But Twitter is created specially to discuss politics and to view your opinion on economy, politics, and all those important global matters. How many of us participate in that, and how many of us now know that there is a war going on, in Ukraine? Now, when I am talking, at this particular moment, Russia has started waged a war against Ukraine. You can go and check that. And how many of us are really active in listening to news, or in gaining knowledge, and participating in all those global issues? We should think about it, dear women. So this comes to the end of our discussion, and the end of my session. Be the voice, the voice that no one has ever heard. Okay, so you be the voice, and you regain your identity during this cyberscape. You think of who you are, and you are your voice, and you also give voice to others. So thank you so much for this wonderful session. Again, I'm thanking Dr. Jasmine, and also the Sangam Association, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. Thank you, Sumati ma'am. Now, are there any questions posted, ma'am?
No, ma'am, it's not posted. I just checked. So thanks a lot. It was indeed a lively, informative, and inspiring session. So
Thank you, ma'am.
thank you, ma'am. With this, we come to an end of the 4th day session of the International Conference. Let's meet tomorrow for the 1st day session at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.